The executive order blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption, which was signed by President Donald Trump on December 20th, 2017, and published on the White House website, has been bringing terror into the hearts of those who have been abusing women, children, and men, abusing the laws of our great country, and stealing from the government and good people of the United States. I will put a link to the executive order in the description below. I speak with urgency, adding my voice to the growing revolution of concerned citizens working to stop the harm to children, women, and men, and to end the reign and the corruption of the elites. There is another aspect to the rampant pedophilia and corruption in the world that has remained mostly hidden to the public, and which is crucial to expose in order to bring it to an end. I'm referring to Tibetan Buddhism, which is in actuality Lamaism. My husband and I had been ensnared in this mind control cult for 14 years and were deeply involved in almost all aspects. We came to understand with deep clarity and horror the deception and harm perpetrated by Tibetan Lamas. Within Tibetan Lamaism you will find corruption, amassing millions, billions of world currency from manipulated Westerners. The Dalai Lama is certainly not a simple monk who has no money. He controls billions of worldwide currency in banks in countries that have secrecy banking laws, as do many others, including Orgyen Trinley Dorje, the 17th Karmapa, Sogyal Rinpoche, Taisitu Rinpoche, Sokni Rinpoche, Choki Nyima, to name but a few lamas who have been coming to our country for many years. It was revealed in the Panama Papers leak in 2016 that Orgyen Trinley Dorje, the 17th Karmapa, has an offshore account, Kagyu Monlam Limited, and the Indian government is now investigating those listed in the Panama Papers for possible tax fraud. Lamaists use the United States 501c3 nonprofit church status to collect millions of dollars in non-reportable, non-taxable income in order to, in many cases, privately enrich the foreign-born Tibetan Lamas and American-born Western Lamas. The Dalai Lama's gatekeeper in the United States, Tenzin Donden, was recently accused of long-term corruption by American students of the Dalai Lama. Donden was the secretary and trustee of the Dalai Lama Trust and the founder of a La Jolla, California-based nonprofit, Friends of the Dalai Lama. Daniel Kranzler, a wealthy American businessman who is a student of the Dalai Lama, accused Donden of extortion and corruption. Kranzler said that Donden demanded large amounts of cash in order for the Dalai Lama to attend events in the United States. Lamas, both Tibetan and Western, prefer to receive cash for their services, and they amass large sums of currency. Tibetan Lamaists, both Tibetan and Western, for decades have taken groups of Western students on spiritual pilgrimages to India and Nepal, and these students carry large amounts of cash, divided among themselves in these groups, out of America for the benefit of the Tibetan Lamas and their monasteries. Sex abuse and pedophilia. Women and men have told stories of sexual abuse, rape, physical abuse, and psychological abuse for decades. These stories have been deftly discounted by the Lamas and their Western defenders by claiming the victims were of inferior intellect, angry, confused, and or crazy. The media have largely ignored these reports. Articles and books have been published and ignored over the decades that detail the abuse, corruption, and deception. The rape of young boys in the Lamaist monasteries, part of the centuries-long Lamaist system of trauma-based mind control, is only now being reported in the West but not to the extent it should be. A young Tibetan man, Kalo Rinpoche, whom my husband and I had met when he was a young child, posted a video several years ago. His horrific story of rape and attempted murder by his teachers is not an isolated incident. I'll post the link below to his video. Articles on the ongoing sexual abuse of children, including in Lamaist monasteries, are in this article that is called Bhutan's Buddhist Monks Accused of Sexually Abusing Boys. I'll leave the link again below in the description. There's another article, What Lies Beneath the Robes, which was published in the Elephant Journal. There's another, Not in the Name of the Dalai Lama, which was published by the Huffington Post, but is now cached and not available to the general public. I will put that link again below as well. The previously mentioned Tenzin Donden, the Dalai Lama's former U.S. gatekeeper, has recently found himself being outed as part of another sex cult scandal. This one, the NXIVM sex trafficking and skin branding cult, with founder Keith Raniere, the Hollywood actress Allison Mack, and several phenomenally wealthy American heiresses. One of these heiresses, Sarah Bronfman of the Seagram liquor fortune, began an affair with Tenzin Donden in 2009 in order to get the Dalai Lama to speak at a 3,000-person NXIVM private conference. Sarah Bronfman even took Donden to Richard Branson's Necker Island for a family party, which included Richard Branson. The Dalai Lama was paid $1 million to speak at the conference, and his attendance at this private event was seen as an endorsement of Raniere and his mind control, coerced sex, and forced mutilation cult. The Lamaists' undue influence in our culture cannot be overstated. Tibetan Lamaists have, for decades, cultivated relationships with scientists, academics, religious leaders, celebrities, and politicians for support and money. They continuously further the story of the victimhood and poverty of the refugee Tibetan people. Lamaists have unduly influenced scientific studies, psychology protocols, academic courses, entertainment, movies and television shows, policies, laws, and the minds of the public toward their deceptions. The author Christine Chandler writes in her book Enthralled, the Guru Cult of Tibetan Buddhism, "It seems the most prestigious universities were the easiest to fool, thanks to the Dalai Lama's ability to pose as a great scholar of wisdom and compassion, promoting his esoteric tantric subliminal ideas about the fluidity and illusion of the self, about the phenomenal world being empty and unreal, about intuition and emotion being superior to reason, about reason being the obstacle to compassion and enlightenment. The Tibetan Lama's advanced Western students with PhDs also embrace these concepts that are anti-rational and defy the biology, science, and Western traditions they were trained in, tossing them aside for the medieval beliefs of occult priests who worship themselves and expect others to do the same." I will leave a link below to her book. They practice deception. Lamaism is a guru-worshipping cult based on a medieval sacerdotal tantra from Hinduism. It's a culture of mind control and sexual abuse with countless demons, deities, ghosts, and spirits, mostly coming from the indigenous Tibetan Bun sorcery, and it uses a veneer of Buddhism to fool the public. Trauma-based mind control is the root of their teachings, which many Lamaists do not deny, and which cannot be separated from their false Buddhism. and actually has very little in common with the Buddhism of Siddhartha Gautama. Buddha certainly did not teach his followers to worship demons or god kings. In fact, idolatry and sacerdotalism was expressly condemned by Buddha. Many people are unaware that the popular mindfulness movement and the revamping of the psychiatric methodologies in wide use today are in fact based on the mind control techniques developed by the alcoholic, womanizing Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa from the centuries-long mind control cult of Tibetan Lamaism. In 1974, Trungpa set up a university, Naropa, which is still operating, to disseminate the cognitive dissonance philosophies of Tibetan Lamaism to academics, psychologists, psychiatrists, and others. The harm done to the psyche of the Western world through these false beliefs is staggering. Gregory Bateson's system theory, which was influenced by his teacher Chogyam Trungpa, and the Dalai Lama's harmful contemplative psychology methodologies and protocols were subsequently adopted by the American mental health industry and are now, unfortunately, standard. These methodologies have spread, among other lies, the false belief that there is no good, no bad, no right, no wrong, and therefore no personal responsibility for harm. Almost all Tibetan and Western Lamas, including the Dalai Lama, are complicit in this trauma-based mind control. The ancient foundational beliefs, practices, and rituals of Tibetan Lamaism, still very much in play today, create the abuses and the conditioned behavior of these abusive Lamaists, who were conditioned in the monasteries from childhood by those who had been conditioned themselves as children in the monasteries, going back centuries. And this has been perpetuated worldwide on deceived Westerners for decades, and on the Tibetan people for centuries, by these practitioners of Vajrayana Lamaism. Highly trained Lamaists are adept at thought projection, emotion projection, dream penetration, which is spiritual rape, psychological abuse, and sexual abuse. In their retreats, in their 1-day, 2-day, 3-day, week-long, and month-long retreats, chanting mantras creates altered states in the students, and the students' minds are then easily manipulated by the Lamas. And in their 3-year retreats, wherein students are trained to be Lamas, sleep deprivation is the norm. Sleep deprivation causes cognitive dysfunction and altered states of consciousness, which makes their minds extremely susceptible to the manipulation of their teachers. The students have to practice almost non-stop for the entire 3 years. Their deep meditation practices, chanting of millions of mantras, and the creation of complex visualizations in their minds of multidimensional worlds and demonic beings. And they are then used by the Lamas to control and manipulate the students. The rituals, pujas, of Lamaism are done to conjure and control the vast pantheon of their deities, demons, spirits, hungry ghosts, and Dharma protectors. Human skull cups and bones are used in some of the Lamaist rituals. In November of 2017, a newspaper in Australia published a lengthy article on the alleged sexual predator Sogyal Rinpoche. The journalist David Lesser wrote in this article that longtime students of Sogyal Rinpoche had written a letter to his organization, Rigpa, and they were demanding that Sogyal stop his sexual, physical, and emotional abuse of his thousands of students, and stop the funding of his sybaritic lifestyle with the millions that he had collected in donated money. But what was not in his article was a response from two traditional Vajrayana teachers, Orgen Tobgyal Rinpoche and Khenpo Namdrol. This response by these two teachers was supported by Rigpa. These two Rinpoches vigorously expressed their perspectives, and they absolved Sogyal of harm, of all harm, and placed the blame squarely on all of the students who had complained. Both of these Tibetans gave teachings at Rigpa Center where they admonished the student body. In his lengthy teaching on Samaya, Orgen Tobgyal said things like, "Beating removes obstacles and brings blessings. Beating hard increases wisdom. When a Lama has mastered great primordial wisdom, everything he does is for the benefit of sentient beings, whether it corresponds to Western ideas or not. If he kills someone, no problem. When you feel hurt, there is no point to turn against the teacher because the real reason is that you don't have enough merit." The people who wrote the letter had wrong views and had broken their samaya with their teacher, who loved and cared for them. Who in their rational minds would accept this mind-bending point of view and believe that murder is okay for Lamaists? Those who have been conditioned to believe that reality is all an illusion. There is no right, no wrong, no good, no bad, and one's Lamaist teacher is to be considered an enlightened being, whose actions are above mere human understanding and judgment. Creating deep guilt and shame in the American students of all races for breaking Samaya, which is an unbreakable vow, according to them, with an Asian man from another culture. Not to mention the sociopathic belief that Tibetan Lamas are above the laws of the truly compassionate countries that had enfolded these refugees and false teachers into their midst. God bless you all and keep you safe. My husband and I wrote a very personal, edgy, unexpected, truthful, and no-holds-barred memoir of our experiences in Lamaism and of our suddenly being plucked out in 2006 by what we came to understand was the hand of God. Our testimonial book, Exposing Deeds of Darkness, is available on Amazon.com, and I'll leave the link below in the description. And as I described earlier, another author, Christine Chandler, who was a former longtime student of Chogyam Trungpa, published her expose about the same time we published ours, Enthralled, the Guru Cult of Tibetan Buddhism. The lies of Lamaism are only active in one's mind if one believes them. God bless you all.